The metro is not only a place where people embark on their daily journeys, but also a source of countless legends and mystical stories. In the depths of the metro lie secrets that awaken feelings of anxiety and eerie curiosity in us. There have been cases of people disappearing, paranormal phenomena, and desolate places where it is better not to stop. I have collected 5 terrifying metro stories that will make you shudder. Story 1: Horror in the Metro. This story happened in Chicago in 1967. During the investigation of a mass disappearance of people, the detectives hit a dead end and were about to close the case. Suddenly, a girl called the department, speaking in a breathless voice filled with terror about an abandoned subway car. The investigators followed her tip. When they entered the car, they were speechless. Bloody bodies hung upside down from the handrails. Further investigation revealed that these were the bodies of the missing people. It turned out that the girl who called the police wanted some excitement and ventured into the abandoned subway station. There she found the car and entered it. After this discovery, the police stationed a group of officers to monitor the car. 3 hours into the surveillance, a man approached and, upon seeing the police, tried to flee. Once caught, it was revealed that he was the maniac who had come to his lair. At the end of the investigation, the bodies were buried, and the killer was sentenced to execution. Story 2: The Witch-like Old Woman. This story happened to my friend. It was an ordinary, uneventful day, already past noon, with few people in the metro. He entered the last car and stood with his back to the wall by the door, engrossed in his phone. The train started and entered the tunnel. Almost immediately, my friend felt an unpleasant stare on him. A prolonged gaze from a stranger is usually noticeable, so at first he ignored it and continued with his phone. But eventually he looked up. Directly opposite him, by the handrail, stood a terrifying old woman, practically a witch, if you believe his description, staring intently at him. She also appeared somewhat homeless, so my friend thought it wise to move to the opposite door. He leaned against it and returned to his phone. The gaze was still felt, and it was hard to resist looking up again, so he did. The old woman was still in her place, staring at him. When he met her gaze, she smirked, turned towards the doors, and walked through the closed doors of the moving train. There were few people, but the car was not empty. When the old woman casually passed through several centimeters of metal and glass, my friend, of course, was stunned and immediately began to look around. But apparently the show was only for him. The other passengers clearly didn't notice anything, even though there was a man standing right next to my bewildered friend, and almost all the seats were occupied. Story 3: The Ghost Train. In the subterranean depths of the Boston Metro, a grim legend has been passed down for many years. It is said that in the 1920s, when the Boston Metro network was just beginning to develop, a tragedy occurred, remembered to this day by the ghost train. The story begins in 1923, when builders were working on a new tunnel meant to connect several key stations. At that time, safety techniques were not as advanced as they are today, and one day a collapse happened. Dozens of workers were trapped in the tunnel, many dying instantly. Rescuers managed to recover only a few bodies. The rest remained forever buried in the cold ground beneath Boston. A few months after the tragedy, when the tunnel was restored and reopened, strange occurrences began to happen. Passengers and train operators started to report strange lights and sounds in the tunnel. But the most terrifying event was the appearance of the ghost train. It is said that this train appears suddenly, usually late at night when the metro is empty. Drivers claim to have seen an old 1920s train moving silently along the tracks. There are no passengers on it, but silhouettes of people can be seen in the windows, seemingly trying to escape. Some claim to have heard screams and moans coming from the train. The ghost train is most frequently seen between North Station and Park Street. On these sections, drivers sometimes notice the dark silhouette of an old train passing by, causing the lights in their cabin to momentarily go out. Many say that after such an encounter, they are left with an overwhelming feeling of fear and cold. There is a belief that the ghost train continues its eternal journey, and anyone who sees it is doomed to misfortune. Some even claim that these are the souls of the deceased workers, still trying to find a way out of their underground prison. Story 4: Mysterious Disappearances. Over the years, witnesses to disappearances in the metro have recounted strange events occurring between stations. Passengers can enter a car and then disappear without a trace before reaching the next station. In some cases, the body of the missing person is never found. One of the most vivid examples of mysterious disappearances is the story that happened at a New York City subway station. Similar disappearances happened almost every night at this station. Passengers entering one specific car would disappear between this and the next station. Local residents called it the cursed car. The Metro administration was forced to close this car and remove it from service to prevent further disappearances. However, even after the closure of this car, the disappearances continued to haunt passengers. Some witnesses claimed to have heard mysterious whispers and seen the ghosts of passengers who had disappeared in this car. To this day, no rational explanation has been found for this phenomenon. Some eyewitnesses claim to have seen mysterious ghosts watching passengers before they vanished. Despite all the efforts of the police and metro security services, these disappearances remain unsolved. Though these are just some examples, the disappearance of passengers in the metro remains one of the most mysterious and frightening phenomena of our time. Many of these disappearances remain unresolved, making us ponder the mystical nature of the metro and its hidden secrets. Story 5: Russian Metro. The most famous story is about the ghost train. Once a month on the Moscow Metro's Circle Line, an old train appears, driven by a conductor in a very old-style uniform. Opinions diverge. Some claim the train is completely empty, while others see thin people in tattered clothes, supposedly the lost souls of workers who died during the construction of the metro. The train stops at every station but rarely opens its doors. If it does, under no circumstances should you enter. Otherwise, you risk being forever trapped in the scariest car of the underground.